This episode is brought to you by 624 Coffee Company. If you dream about coffee beans the way I do, you're probably a little weird, but you might enjoy good coffee. So order from 624 Coffee Company today. All right, then, welcome in to another rare episode of The Opening Drive. And this is round two with Vic. We tried this like a good month ago, but because I'm getting older, my technical skills are in decline. And I literally forgot what program to use to record, a podcast and interview somebody. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I was paying for StreamYard at the time. Now I'm poor, so I'm not paying for it, and I'm like, well, whatever. But like, how do you forget things like that? It's rather impressive. So anyway, welcome back for round two, Vic. Thanks for your patience and wanting to do this again.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun last time. Hopefully we can have some fun this time.
Yeah. Well, you can't do drugs, but I can.
No.
Um, Not everybody needs that for fun, though, right?
Well, you
So
know what? Like running shoes, they only help you run faster. They're not going to slow you down. It's kind of that thing.
it's true. Um, Real quick about you. The it's kind of funny to almost try to repeat like a conversation we have. So I'm not going to try to repeat everything, but just the things that come to mind really quick. But the first time I met Vic was when I was working at the Naval Air Station. I had just retired from the Army and I went to work for the Navy for some reason. But I'm glad I did because I met a lot of cool people and I learned about the Navy. But I guess I had only been there maybe like 3 or 4 months. And this dude walks in, and I'm gonna say a kid because to me he looked like a young guy, like a really young kid. But he comes in wearing a suit, and I immediately think he's coming to sell us something. And then since he was, because he was selling himself, but you were working at the university, and your idea was to come in and try to get some time with because you hadn't gone to school yet to be an MC, or you had.
No, I had just gone to the school and I had
Okay,
just come
yeah.
out of it, and I wanted to, I wanted to work in the field that I got, that I got into.
So you walked into the Naval Air Station CEO's public affairs office, and you're just like, check me out, yo. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh, I
oh,
remember that
that's
day.
cool.
I had gone to I think I had to go to the reserve center for something, right? Because I'm a Navy reservist
Hmm.
and I was local, so I was always popping in and out. It was just easier, with those folks just to pin them down like in person versus trying to do everything over the phone or email, right? Because you have to wait a week, no one follows up. And I remember working at the university and I just was like still like in military mode. Like I'm like, oh dude, like this is so annoying sometimes dealing with civilians. I was a director of development over there, so I was trying to raise money for the university, dealing with the student workers, dealing with, some of the professors and the staff over there. And I was like, you know what? Let me just stop in this PAO office and see what they're doing because I got to do my AT anyways, and I know the air show is coming up, and I used to be a master arms military police over there at NES Corpus, so I was used to being stuck in the parking lots, and I was tired of being in the parking lots, parking cars while everyone's having fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I walked in and I introduced myself and said, "Hey, you guys need some free labor. I'd be more than happy to help you guys out." And I think you guys took advantage of that.
Gratefully so. It's America. Where everyone's going to get taken advantage at some point or another.
Yeah.
They're like, well, your reward is your experience. You're like, oh man, I think that's invaluable. Could I pay my bills now? Thank you. And they're like, no, you cannot pay your bills, sir. This is America. Uh, we're not going that tangent yet. But yeah, but I'm really glad you did. I mean, it was really cool. It was a great way to present yourself. Like, I'm not good at that. And I've learned that over the years. I'm not good at walking into a room and just being like, hey, I'm this guy. This is what I have to offer. And if you don't take my offer to, come and work with you or for you, then you're a fucking idiot. So you be able to do that, and that's like a great confidence you have. And so being a guy that was what partially raised in New Jersey, partially raised in Corpus, like where do you get that confidence from? Where did that build from?
So I think a lot of it grew. So from a lot of uh, you know, insight and internal reflection and whatnot, I realized a lot of that came from just me masking who I was, right? Like I was not this confident guy. I was not this confident kid either. I was very shy. And
Mhm.
I knew that I had to project what I wanted to be. And, I was a three-piece suit and tie kind of guy. and that helped me create this persona that helped me get, the position at the university, helped me walk into the rooms that just open up doors, right? Because if you can exude this confidence, even though deep down inside I'm like this very like shy person with a bunch of insecurities, it helped me come out of my shell, and it's opened up a lot of doors, not just for you and I, but everywhere else in my career. You know,
Yeah. No, that's cool. I think a lot of people do that though. It's like and maybe not going as far as a three-piece suit because that's pretty baller, but like you gotta add what the vest. You're adding the vest to that at that
adding
point.
the vest
But
to it, yeah.
but what's cool with that, you can rip that jacket off, roll up your sleeves, man, and you can be like
Hmm.
almost like a presidential candidate and show that you're with the people out there, like picking trash up by the side of the road. And then you put that jacket back on and you go to a press conference and everyone's like, wow, that guy's a baddie, dude. And you feel good about yourself, and so do they. So
Yeah, for sure.
but I think a lot of people though do mask that, and something I read recently, which was interesting, was about like the decline of people's social skills, like the decline of people being able to converse in person, go to a restaurant and tolerate a crying baby instead of losing their shit
Oh
about
yeah.
it. This little stuff, and part of it has to do with social media, is because we've distanced ourselves, but we also see online people's problems where it's like, nah, I don't want to deal with that person or whatever. I already know what that person's like, so why do I care to get to know them any further or something like that, right? And then the pandemic happens, and then we're like forced to socially distance. We're forced to just do this and only talk this
Yeah.
way for a
Yeah.
while, and so it starts to erode. And so I mean, it's maybe it comes to a point that you have to figure out how to really present yourself well, despite the fact of having like internal flaws and things. And I think that's common. We have people running for president that are like that. Like we
Oh
know they're
man.
extremely flawed, but they're really good at presenting that they're not. Um, but I think that's common, and but it's part of leadership, and that's the other
Hmm.
thing too. I think it's really part of leadership. And so recently you became a chief, and
Yep.
congratulations on that once again.
Thank you.
And
Thank
now
you.
it's been a few months, I suppose. But
Yeah. The imposter
well,
syndrome has worn off. The imposter syndrome is worn off
well,
now.
good. So what's changed for you now since becoming a chief? Like, how have your interactions changed? How do people in the Navy speak to you?
Oh man, there's one of the big things that they harp on through Chief season is being humble, right? And I thought that this was just a lesson for me, right, to be humble, because that's the one thing that I needed to work on. But what I've learned is that they try to instill it in everybody across the platform. Because when you're a chief, right, it doesn't matter if you've been a chief for 3 days or you've been a chief for 10 years. People look up to you, right? Sailors look to you, even
Mhm.
as a senior NCO, right? They're looking to you as for all the answers, and you're like, oh, I just put these on. Like, I don't know what's going on. So a way that's helped me do that is I used to be really quick about spitting out answers, or at least spitballing answers, right? Shooting from the hip. And I've stopped that now because shooting from the hip can give bad advice or bad info. And us Navy Chiefs, we're not about giving bad info. So I've taken the time to stop, slow down. It doesn't need to be a 15-second response. I can respond in a regular amount of time that'll enable me to get a bunch of info and give the right information. And so I think that's the biggest change for me. Right now, they're sending me out to Japan to go take over the CTF 70s change of command ceremony and everything they're going over there on the Reagan. So it's like, mind you, I've never been out to sea. I mean, I think you've probably spent more time on the water there at NES Corpus than I have.
I
And
went. I got to go on a yacht once. Yeah, maybe.
yeah. So for me, going out to sea is it's something new. I'm excited for it. I'm a little nervous, but hey, you know what? I'm a sailor. It's what we're supposed to do. Sailor sail. So here we go.
You said CTF.
Yeah, yeah.
What is that?
CTF
What does that stand
70s.
for?
So they're like the forward deployed task force of the Seventh Fleet.
Okay.
So they're the ones dealing with all the big. It's a high vis kind of ceremony, and that's why they want somebody specifically there to kind of
Is
cover
their
for
CEO
everything.
the guy on Twitter that's Chowda Hill? Have you seen his Twitter? I
I
sent you
have
that.
not.
It's
No.
I think he's the CEO of the Reagan, maybe the Eisenhower. I don't know. They're in the Persian Gulf and conducting operations. So maybe
Hmm.
not, because you were saying Japan, right? So I think, but I mean, I don't know if they're based out of Japan. I'm not 100%,
Yeah,
but
yeah. they're based out of Japan or that area of
Let
operation,
me
and
find
so
it real quick. So this dude is a master on social media, man, and it's kind of cool because he's an admiral, I suppose, right?
Mhm.
And he posts a lot of things with his. If I get technically advanced, I'll try to put it up onto the edit here. I know I'll do later, right?
Yeah.
But he posts a lot of stuff with his sailors, and he brings them up into the what would it be, the masthead.
Mhm.
He brings them
Yeah.
up into the uh what is it, the deck where all the nav stuff is, and the
Remember, I'm
CEOs
not
and
a seafaring sailor, so
yeah.
the like
um
where the wheelhouse is at and stuff.
yeah, they say it on like Star Trek, you have the con whatever, and I
The
guess
bridge to the
the
bridge.
bridge, yeah, the bridge. So um he brings sailors up to the bridge, and he gives them he interviews them. He has a quick interview. He posts a picture, okay, like this one, if that's decently visible. But he's taking a
Okay.
picture of a sailor, and he has a quick little synopsis about him, and he like does it for like their parents or their loved ones, and he's like, Petty Officer Jones says hi to his wife Sheila and their 12 kids or whatever, and it's just kind of cool. And then he gives them a cookie that I don't know where he's getting these cookies from, but maybe the best hall or whatever. But he's been doing this for a while, and then he'll have some stuff that probably their PA was putting out, like jets taking off and going and bombing cool shit or whatever. But dude, he's got like, let me see real quick again. He has a ton of followers. He's up to 66,000 followers. And
Wow.
so he's the CEO of CVN 69.
Okay.
um I don't remember what ship it is though. I mean, he has it in there somewhere, but uh I guess that's Googleable. BVN 69er. But it's cool. But it's cool. He's
Oh,
like
that's the
he's doing
Eisenhower. That's the Eisenhower.
size an hour. Okay, yeah. So
Mhm.
they've been sorry, I have an itchy ear because I'm old. They've been doing operations in that area, and so everything that's been going on supporting, I guess, bombing Iranian paramilitary stuff like that.
Yeah,
They've been doing that,
it's
and it's
fighting the good
baller.
fight.
Yeah, that is.
And you know
It's
what?
pretty
That's kind of
baller.
cool, actually. Hold on. All these dogs want to be all over by my. Hold on. Give me one second. Let me
That
put
always
these
happens.
dogs.
It's okay. This
Like,
is the power
oh,
of editing.
the whole house, and they want to be sitting right underneath me.
Usually, I'm
Underneath
surprised
me.
mine's not in here, but I think because Hunter's home, he's hanging out with him. But because they'll hear me talking, and I guess they get curious, like, who are you talking to?
Yeah, I
You
don't know. I didn't know
dog.
anybody's in there.
Like, why aren't
Is
you
are you
talking
petting
to
another
me?
dog in there?
I bet you're talking to a dog right now. Hunter's gotten into I always forget, not Underdog, Dogman books recently. It's like Captain
Really?
Underpants, Dogman, all that.
Oh, okay, that
And
kind of
it's
stuff.
great because his reading is picked up phenomenally because he found something they found at school, of course, because I'm useless,
That they
but like
like.
they found him, yeah, and like his reading is picked up amazingly. He'll just flip through pages and he's like just blasting through, and I'm like, right on, dude. I don't know how we got here. But as far as the Navy ship goes, just think about that with
Yeah.
like leadership and everything. So that dude doesn't know everything, obviously, right? And it's
Mhm.
like with the chief, it's like when I become a senior NCO, you start realizing you don't have to know everything, but what's really helpful is if you can point your people in the right direction, or you
Yeah.
provide the tools for them, the assets. And then your job now is really to develop them to replace you someday. And
Yeah.
so that's like one of the bigger learning lessons. And I'm sure you've been under people. I was under people who didn't grasp that concept. They wanted to gatekeep their role. They wanted to like as if they were never going to go away, or you were going to steal part of
Yes.
their salary if you could do their job. And it's
Well, and
but
I
you
used to
learn
be a
that.
military. I used to be a military police officer, and I feel like a lot of those guys, those old school guys.
Yeah.
I've been in the Navy 15 years, right? And so when I first got in, those old school guys still existed. Where in the civilian world, they were like border patrol, they were ICE, or they were canine handlers, or law enforcement. And I was not that. I was this young kid who sold cars and worked at cell phones, so sold cell phones. So I definitely saw a lot of that where they would kind of raise their nose to me when I wanted to put myself in leadership positions within the Navy side of the house. They're like, you sell cell phones. How can you ever do this kind of stuff? And so,
You don't
yeah,
know something
man.
about kid.
Yeah,
And God
exactly. And
forbid I
now I'm
teach
like,
you.
and I'm like, And so now something that I heard, if you really want to help your sailors, stop helping them. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
don't
stupid,
baby them.
right? That's dumb. But yeah, don't baby them. And I have a first class that I put in the Navy. Like when I was recruiting, I put him in the Navy. And he's coming from your last stuff, and I'm like, bro, you are now at the same, like, you've been in now 7 years. That's how many years I was in when you met me, right? It's time for you to start being stepping up and being the first class that you
It's
needed,
so
like that I
crazy.
was for you. And he's just like, at first I can tell like he kind of took offense to it, but then he's like, no, you're right. I need to start getting on the game now. So yeah, it's a weird transition for me. And they always say, oh, it's when you become first class, right? When you put E6, like, it's different because they're going to start treating you like a chief. But it is a huge shift when you become a chief and you put anchors on.
Yeah, I think like I've told you before, is my experience from being in the army for 20 years and then going to work for the Navy. It was massive culture shock. And
Hmm.
initially when I started, and I know I told you this before, is that whenever I had started in so 2016, summer of 2016, somewhere in the next like 30 to 60 days, the Navy and their infinite wisdom decided to do away with rates as like a way
Oh
to
yeah.
talk to dress people and writing. And I was like, yes, because I had to write all that shit, every time, it's like instead of just writing Petty Officer Jones, you're gonna write like electronic warfare specialist with a third degree black belt and blah 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 technician Jones. And I'm like, so they're walking around every time you talk to somebody, so what's your rate? And they're like, you can't tell, bro. And I'm like, no, I can't
It
tell.
used to be a lot easier. We used to wear like our rates on our sleeves back in the old unit when I first got in, and you could tell who was who and what they did. But
It'd
now,
be so
yeah,
much better. Yeah, so I
yeah,
applauded them getting rid of that, and then what, within 90 days, they were like, "Sorry, that was a bad idea." And that's one of those things too where so whoever the CNO was at the time and the Chief Master Chief, or no, what was
the
it? Command
MCPON,
Master Chief.
Master Chief
Yeah.
Petty Officer of the Navy.
The Chief Master Chief, that would be so dumb. But anyway, it's like, well, redundancy is, but like they didn't listen to anyone. They obviously didn't talk to
No,
anyone. They talked to someone who probably was just a yes man, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a great idea, Tom. Let's do that." And he was like, "Oh, fuck yeah!" And then everybody just bagged. But I applaud them for admitting the mistake and then changing it back, because a
yeah,
lot of, I mean, dude, in the army, nah, we lived with the we lived with that stupid effing black beret for like 10 years before they finally said, this shit's dumb. It makes no sense. It's like
yeah.
110 degrees almost everywhere we're at. Why are we wearing a stupid ass
This
beret, dude?
wool,
It was
yeah, these wool
so
beret.
nasty. Oh, it was horrible. I was stationed at Fort Sam when they changed it over. It was General Shinseki. That guy can kick rocks for the rest of his life. He's the one that made that decision. Chief of Staff of the Army. I was stationed at Fort Sam, where, during the summer, it's 95 degrees,
Yeah,
180% humidity. And then we're doing guard duty after 9/11, all these things, and like sometimes they let us wear a patrol cap, sometimes they wouldn't, and you're just like, dude, like come on, just come on. Like,
for
why?
real
They would
though.
stink. They would just get so stinky. But yeah, like they never admitted their mistake until it was like 3 or 4 generals later. We're like, let's go back to the patrol cap. This is dumb. But
Yeah,
I think
millions
because
of
they don't
dollars
want to.
spent on them.
Oh yeah. And every God, they look so bad, dude. They look so bad,
Well,
especially with people with big hair. Like it
well,
just
see,
looks
and I've
bad.
worked for a couple of admirals now on the information warfare side of the house, and some things that I've learned is that some admirals like to create change, right? So they can put that document trying to get another star or whatever. And
Yeah.
some admirals, they just want to see things work more efficiently, right? And I mean, the Navy's had so many uniform changes. Somebody's up there saying, "Yeah, we need this," but it's like, okay, well, let's be very practical with what we need. Like, do we really need, an extra dress uniform, or do we need something that's going to keep us warm for like when we're standing, like you said, like we're out doing guard duty? Like, what's practical? What's functional? You know. So, those. As long as I'm a Celres, so they pay for my uniforms. But if I had to pay for them, I'd be a little upset. I'd be upset every time they change them.
Oh yeah, it gets pricey. I mean, I think we went through 3 uniforms while I was in, like, let's go back to the 1900s, before before the internet was really a thing, which
Before
is
the Great War on Terrorism.
God, I'm telling you, man, it's so crazy. Um, When I think back to that, I'm just like, God, I don't know my kids. My kids are like, Dad, you were like, you joined the army in the previous millennium. It's like, what are you talking about? You
Yeah,
don't
at the
understand
turn of the
this
century, Dad.
new
You were
age
there at the turn of
shit.
the century.
Yeah, I'm like,
They're gonna
wow,
they're gonna have
man.
like pictures of you, and they're like, "This is my dad," and it's just you all grumpy with your coffee, and like he was a war veteran over here. Like they do.
From
Have
the
you seen those old like?
1900s.
Yeah.
You're
He
like,
entered
hey,
his service in the year of the Lord 1999 kind of thing.
like the Great World Wars happened in the same century, and when I joined, I was like, nothing's going on. This is great. This is gonna be really cool, bro. I'm gonna breeze through a few years and get out. And then you reenlist one time, and they're like, bam,
It's
war.
like,
Like
gotcha. Yep.
fucking assholes, man. Um, so man, I was going somewhere, but I forgot. It's all right.
So
Let's
leadership on
let's
the in the Navy on the chief side, we
yeah.
did that. Um, really cool experience. I think for those that are not in the Navy or Coast Guard, going through chief season, right? It's like an extra step
Yeah.
of learning process. And to those viewers out there who are senior enlisted and want a different, a new and different challenge, I challenge you guys to go through chief season with the Chiefs and learn something a little bit new, bring it back to your branch, and hopefully implement some good stuff there.
No, absolutely, and that was one of my learning curves was, and I know we had talked about this in our previous interview that no one will ever see, but when I was at AFN in Korea, I was getting replaced by Chief Select, and she was going through the Chief Select school, right? What'd you call it?
Season, we call it season, chief season.
Little season,
What
little paprika.
a
Um,
little bit, yeah.
yeah, and I just remember that someone had called me from, I guess, I don't remember where I should have looked this up in the last 4 months, but the Navy base that was in Korea. But someone called me from there, and they were like, "Hey, man, just let us know if whatever her name was, leaves her box sitting around or a book or whatever." And I'm like, "You're asking me to like narc on my replacement? Are you out of your fucking mind?" I was like, "No, dude." I was like, "This isn't happening." I'm like, "This it's hard enough." Like I could see like she was already sweating bullets through this whole process because she would have to go down there for like 2 or 3 days and
Yeah.
come back up, and she was learning the job from me and all this stuff. And I'm like, why would I make her life harder? I'm just not gonna do that. But I did respect the process. And then especially when I went to work at the Naval Air Station and then, got to document a couple of promotions to chief and
Mhm.
pinning ceremonies and things like that. I mean, the tradition, it's really great. I mean, it's really rad. I think the other services, they don't come anywhere close to uh, kind of rivaling whatever that heraldry, that tradition, whatever that the Navy does. I
That
think it's really
that
cool, and I hope it
process,
never
yeah.
changes. Yeah, it should never ever change. And it would suck if it does. I mean, there's enough changes going on. I had a friend send me a picture the other day. There's a couple of dudes in the army that are becoming infamous on TikTok because they're bearded, and they're
Oh,
like
okay.
one dude calls himself the bearded chief or whatever, and he's like he's a warrant officer. And he's just like, how are these guys having beards? I mean, they're beards. They're not
They're
like
pretty big, yeah.
a shaving profile, a chick or whatever. It's like it's and I'm thinking like I don't know, like I
Well,
just don't
the
know. I
thing,
mean,
the newest thing out right now is paganism. Is if you convert to
using your
paganism
religion,
and you can have, but you still have to funnel, run it up the chain of command, get something from medical, but you'll have to keep it. But some guys are doing it, which is fine. Whatever, you want your beard that bad,
yeah.
but
You wanna stick out
me,
that
like,
badly to the command sergeant major that's me walking across the field, or that crusty old chief who's gonna just light your ass up regardless, and you wanna be like, "Well, but I have this document that says I can have that beard," and they're gonna take that document, they're gonna shove it up your ass. If it's worth it that much, then,
and the
cool, I
thing that I've
guess.
learned, I actually learned this from a black chief, right? A common thing with that type of skin is the whole getting the pimples, ingrown hairs.
Yeah.
And he, because I would get it real bad, right? But he's like,
Mhm.
"Nah, you just don't know how to take care of your face." So he taught me how to cleanse my face, how to wash it, how to, scrub it and
Yeah.
exfoliate. And then my beard started going out thicker. And, then I didn't have any of those skin problems. But a lot of it was just I just didn't know how to wash my fucking face.
Little things like don't shave against the grain. Like I learned that when I was deployed and I was shaving one day with a cold water, shitty razor, and this guy's next to me, and I'm going like on my neck, and
Those
he's like,
those those orangey
"Whoa,
yellow razors with the white caps, right?
dude, horrible." You could probably like if you had to, but
Yeah.
this guy's just like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, "You can't shave that way, bro." He's like, and just talks me through this whole process, and I'm like, "Fuck, man, changed my life." Right there, a moment of leadership that he didn't even think about,
Mhm.
but it changed my life for the better going forward, where I just shaved better. And now I don't care. It's the best. The
It's
only
not
time I
well, see
trim
it
my
for
beard, go ahead.
no, I'd say really the only time I shave now is real weekends. Otherwise, I have a full beard out, and I just came off real
Mine don't
weekend
grow
this
that
past real
fast.
weekend, so but
I'll
it's
usually trim it if I have something important to do, like a job interview that
clean it
I'm
up a little bit.
yeah, and then I regret it later and I'm like, "Oh, why did I do that? I didn't want that
Like,
job
who is
anyway."
that man? Ew, he's so
Yeah,
gross.
yeah. And then or if I get tired of the gray, because it's like my whole beard now is just so gray, dude, and so white, and it's
See, I'm
just
starting to
strange.
get the gray in here, and at first I was kind of like plucking them, and I'm like, you know what? Like, why? Like, let it grow out naturally, because
Wisdom.
I was gonna say it's a lot to do with wisdom now, right? Because I'm into my
Yeah.
my Uncle Iroh era, and so
How old
get
are
all
you
that
now?
taken care of. 36 now.
36. Yeah, well, yeah. It's about
36, yeah.
that transition is starting to come. Yeah, you'll hit 40 and it'll a little more gray and you won't even notice it, dude. And then suddenly you're like 43, 44, and you're like, "Holy shit, I'm like
You're like,
really
"I got
gray, dude." And
salt and pepper." Well, see, it's funny because so
yeah.
my dad, full head of hair, black hair, even to this day, and then I have an uncle, who's younger, my younger uncle, and by the time he was 30, he had salt and pepper hair, like and so I'm seeing my brother, like, I'm the one with the darker hair, full head of hair, and my brother's getting the salt and pepper hair, like, really bad, and he's 3 years younger than me, and so now we call his name's Greg, and so instead of saying gray hairs, we say, "Oh, we got Greg hairs," teasing
Mhm.
him a little bit, but yeah, I mean, like, he looks good, I'll just let it grow out and, hopefully look just as good as him.
So tell me about how you approach fatherhood and how you were raised and some of the lessons you learned, life lessons or whatever, but some of those things that you apply to fatherhood today.
So I would say, oh man, going all the way back. So I was a young 19-year-old. I went to Texas A&M, Phi Tech Aggie, and had a commission from the Marine Corps, right? Guaranteed flight commission Marine Corps. Got my girlfriend pregnant. You can't have dependents while on scholarship, so I got dropped from the scholarship. Um, Ex-father-in-law was a retired master chief, and I was in JRTC at 4-H Moody High School, so it just made sense for me to join the Navy, right? To do all that, and I realize now the reason why I did all those things without really talking to anybody or really, just made the decision on my own is because I want to be able to provide for my children as a father, right? Or have someone to lean
Mhm.
back on.
Yeah.
And so I've always kept that in the back of my mind. But the reality is I was just worried about being like my dad, who was a deadbeat, not involved in my life, even as an adult, very, very rarely. And if he was, it wasn't like a good influence kind of thing. And so the thing that I've taken the most out of being a father is just being who you needed, right? Because, and I'm sure you've seen it. You've got kids all the way up and all the way down, but going into the anxiety and fear that you have of going to kindergarten for the first day. Like I remember
Mhm.
that and having nobody going to the bus by myself and just figuring it out. So I don't want my kids to experience that. I don't want them to experience poverty the way I experienced it. I don't want them to have to choose between you know doing one extracurricular activity over another because of funds or whatever, right? So I really tried my best just to be who I needed, whether it's emotional ear or support like that for the older kids now that they're going through breakups and arguments and relationship stuff. To something as small as like I'm hungry at night, like what, my mom would have been like, go to sleep, and I'm like, you know what? We got time for a banana. Let's go eat a banana. Let's go grab an apple. Let's have a couple Oreo cookies before we go to bed. Like we'll brush our teeth again in the morning. Don't worry about it. And it's like simple things like that that,
Right.
instead of going to sleep hungry, like what's food insecurity and trauma and abandonment issues, like we're not gonna have that here. If we're gonna have issues, it's because, your family's too involved, not involved enough.
Sure.
So
Because you're giving them a support system that they're learning and how it should be.
mhm.
And because it still blows my mind today to be in like I've left groups on Facebook because I'll see like some stupid meme, right? And parents, like our age type parents, who are basically condoning like shitty parenting, just based off a meme. And I'm just reading it, and I'm going like, no, you fucking assholes. Like, that's the reason your kid hates you. That's the reason you probably hate your
Dude,
parents. But you're like, yeah, but it was okay. It keeps them off the streets. And I don't think so.
like,
I don't think it
and,
does.
and
It
and
probably
like
puts them
no fault
there.
to my mom, but I'm like, yeah, I was disciplined as a child, but like I was afraid of you. Like I was scared of you. Like my entire childhood was like fearing you, and I don't want my kids to like. I don't spank my kids. Like I don't. But I'm not like I explain to them and talk to them like why we don't do things, and I really haven't had any issues with
Yeah.
like my teenagers. Yeah, they'll do dumb shit. I'll sit down, I explain to them. Like for example, like some folks have their teenage daughters sneak out at night, right? Well, my teenage daughter's sneaking out at fucking 5:30 in the morning to get to school early to hang out with her boyfriend so they can go to class together. And I'm like,
That's a tough
if
one.
you wanted to go to school, if you want to go to school early, like let me know. But the fear that I explain to her is I don't want to get a phone call at 6 in the morning, right? And he get a phone call like, "Hey Vic, just so you know, you're the parent of it. Well, she died in a car accident." No,
Right.
my daughter's downstairs. My daughter's downstairs asleep. She takes the bus at 7. And I told her I was like, "How shitty would that be for me to get that phone call?" And once I
Yeah.
explain them in that way, they're like, "Oh fuck, that would be really shitty." Like, and it kind of deters them. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, I love being a dad. I love seeing my kids kind of go through the stages that I went. I remember like my insecurities, being that insecure kid, or like, and it's weird because I can afford to get them whatever type of American Eagle, Abercrombie, whatever clothes they want, and these kids are happy with like off-brand J.C. Penney's, Arizona jeans, like thrifting, and I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is y'all are weird.
It's a whole different generation. It's mine are too. Mine
Yeah.
are like they don't care about brand name stuff. I think maybe the most expensive kind of things they want to get into has to do with like gaming or something. I really want to get this video graphics card or whatever. And they're not worried about the clothes. I mean, half of them wearing sweats. Like it's 90 degrees outside. They're still wearing a sweatshirt. And I'm like, why are you okay? And he's like, yeah, it's just comfortable. Like, bro, there's no way it's comfortable. And then an hour later, when you happen to be at like Disney World, they're like, can I get a t-shirt? Because it's too hot. I'm like, no, dude, you can walk back to the resort and get
No,
a
you need to
t-shirt. You end up
wrap that around your
yeah, wrap that around your waist.
but
Yeah, it's
yeah, now
it's
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 cool.
a whole different, yeah, and I think it's cool. Like my oldest is in college, and he has 2 years to go, and then he'll be out on the streets. Unless he carries on or whatever. But we've started to talk about the economy and his ability to buy a house one day and do all these things that we were you know, taught to just rise up through the pyramid and the things you're supposed to want and do and everything. And, you just come to a realization is that our kids probably will never be able to buy a house unless they're making seven figs. And even then, it's going
Mhm,
to be like moderate compared to what you could have gotten a few years ago making seven figs because it's just insane right now. And so, without going down entire that rabbit hole of the whys and whatever, because I don't think anyone really understands why, but it's like
mhm,
that's such a concern, and so I think like you have to approach your parenting to kind of massage those fears and anxieties because that's gonna build. They're gonna be like, how am I gonna rent an apartment, man? Because again, going back
mhm,
to whether it's Miami or Los Angeles or it's like Omaha, Nebraska, everything's way overpriced. And if you're like, yeah, I'll go
mhm.
live in Omaha, Nebraska, I can rent a 3 bedroom house for like 1,500 a month. They also pay like relatively the same to like whatever that is. So
Whatever
you're
the
not,
area is.
yeah, you're gonna just get kind of boned no matter where. So but I think about that with approach to parenting, and these kids today have, like we probably had different like fears and anxieties about becoming an adult whenever we were kids, but I think it was a little more simplistic. And these guys are now looking at it in a different lens, and they're seeing
Mhm.
so much get fed to them all the time that it's like, I don't know, what am I gonna do? And you're probably gonna have more kids living with their parents, I think, longer going forward, which is, I'm
Yeah.
always like, yeah, that's
Well, see,
fine.
and I tell my kids, I'm like, I bought 2.5 acres in Eastern Washington. Taxes are
Hmm.
extremely low here. And like I'm instilling in my kids this communal aspect of the family, right? Because one, I didn't have it. I have 5 other brothers and sisters, but I never grew up with any of them. Um,
Mhm.
but I want them to now grow up with each other. You guys may not all get along 100% or like whatever, you may not interact with each other, but I hope that at the end of the day, you guys can work together to a common goal. So like I agree to explain to the kids, live with me as long as you can, right? You have responsibilities and stuff here. I'll build a compound here that we can have because, like you were saying,
Oh, shit.
the only reason why I was able to afford what I could afford is because I have the VA loan, right? I don't have to pay PMI, so it saves me $400 or $500 a month to do that. And then if I build, a swimming pool, a couple of, I want to put a barn and medium out there. I want to have a shop. Um, I want to put on a couple concrete slabs so that way I can have friends who have RVs come and visit and hang out, or put my own RV out there for family to come visit. Um, but that's what I'm trying to instill now because like you said, I see the future and there's no way my kids will be able to afford, even with the college degree. And even then, like I push vocational school to the kids too now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I wish I could go back and be an electrician. It'd be really nice to be an electrician. I could do this stuff, or working with my hands. So,
Mhm.
yeah, man, it's one of those weird spots where you want them to grow up and you want them to be successful and out on their own, but at the same time, it's like like realistically, like they don't have the same American dream as we did.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
or they won't be able to.
It's owned. It's been bought. It's been bought.
Mhm,
And so, yeah, and my oldest, he's going to Texas Tech for mechanical engineering, and he's brought up more than once to me. He's like, "Well, sometimes I just want to get my certificate in welding because he learned to do welding in high school." And I'm always like, "Yeah, you can probably do fine doing that. Just understand the hustle. Like you're unless you go to work for a company and then you're doing it
mhm,
by how they want you to do it, they're going to pay you the set amount or whatever. If you're an independent contractor, you can probably do better, but understand the hustle is you're going to sell yourself and your work's going to sell you. But
mhm,
but there's also like a pretty decent danger involved with welding too that I'm not I don't get excited about, and I'm kind of like, well,
mhm.
why don't you let's finish that degree, get that in your pocket. And then
Yeah,
if you want to weld, go weld, bro. But at least you have that to fall back on, maybe you do consulting, whatever it might be. But I think these kids are they're gonna have to be Swiss Army knives, and they're gonna have to just be multi-skilled, multi-branded, and willing to do a balancing act. And it sucks.
mhm,
Like it sucks for them. And I think about too. I'm like, I wish I could take these boys and go live like in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, something like that. And you can
yeah,
go to the dentist for $5 and get the same care that you get here for like 900. And
yep,
just all those little things, dude. It's like it's really difficult to try to tell them, "Keep working hard, because one day you'll be able to rent a one-bedroom apartment for, like, $8,000 a month."
for you and your family, and it's like,
Yeah,
well, and
y'all can
too,
all be
like
in one
right
room.
where the kids are going to school now, they have like a vocational type of school, and so my oldest is
Mhm.
going to the culinary like program there, and is
That's awesome.
absolutely loving it. And
Yeah, that's
they
cool.
came to me and told me, "Did you know how many people don't know how to cook?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's why do you think all my friends want to come over here because I know how to fucking cook?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm noticing these are like really life skills that we're learning." And I'm
Yeah,
like, just to brag a little bit of my kid, he was chosen to do a 5-course meal in the fall to lead the 5-course meal. And
okay.
so, from me wanting my kid just to know how to sustain themselves, right, not have to eat out all the time, be able to cook food, to now this kid is fucking planning a 5-course meal, like for the school, and I'm just
That's baller.
what a good program because I pushed, hey, you need to go get
Yeah,
some more experience out there, and he's doing full-time CB. So they have a running start program where you go to college, right? So you can graduate with your associates by the time you graduate high
mhm,
school, and
yeah.
they're doing that and doing the culinary stuff, and I'm just like flabbergasted at the skills that they can learn if they're really interested in it, and
Yeah.
how much motivation they can have as far as getting to school there. Because this kid wants all A's, and he's doing it while having a really shitty schedule and waking up early and going to sleep late and washing and doing all the chores here in the house. So it's
Well,
crazy
and maybe
how
they're seeing that's almost like that's what it's gonna take,
well. I'm sure they
especially
see
to
us
not be
hustle, right?
right.
And
They don't wanna be
so
uncomfortable. They don't wanna worry about, like, whether or not they can pay a water bill this month, or if they're gonna have to call somebody to like beg for some aid or something, you know? And
Mhm.
they don't want to be in those shoes. And that, I mean, and that's good though. They're learning those lessons from their parents as they should.
Yeah, yeah, and we try to have this good foster environment where everyone's included, and um, school's a priority. Like, I actually reached out to my ex just now. Oh, well, just recently because I got the kids' grades back, and so they both have all A's except one D. One's got a D in math and one's got a D in English. And I sent it to my ex, and she's just like, "What do we do? These are unacceptable, and we need to get them in tutoring. Who do we contact for that?" And I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, wait a minute. I think if they were all D's and C's, we would have an issue, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I think our kids have heard us say a little bit too much, with our chests. So we used to say D's equal degrees. Put your effort where you get the most ROI, and that's what these I asked them, like, "Hey, what are you guys doing with these class?" Well, honestly, if I sat and studied even just to get a C, it would take so much more time. I'd rather put that time and effort into other things, which I can see because I have A's in other classes. So I'm trying to change that perspective of, you have to have all A's and you need to have good grades. And it's like, well, the reality is, when I went to college, I put my eggs in the baskets that had the most return. And that's exactly what my kids are doing. So, like, how can I get mad at them? But to understand
Yeah.
and grasp that concept in high school versus like me, I was, in my mid 20s before I figured that out. But
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully they just find something that works for them.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's there's a lot of options out there now, but like seeing kids want to work with their hands is amazing.
Hmm.
When I have friends that I see of their children have joined the military, and I say children, they're like 18, 19, but or just like that Navy captain's Twitter, and I see young people in the military, I kind of get excited, man, because honestly, like right now, if I'm 18 or 19, there's no fucking way I'm joining the military, dude. Like I don't know, just this is this mentality, so it might be different, but and I don't even know the incentives that are there anymore, but I would just look at it like, man, I'm not going off to fight your wars, you old, the senators and
Pause,
congressmen. Like, what
pause,
the
pause
hell?
that for a second. Let me grab the dog real quick, and then I'll
You're
I'll talk
good.
to you about that because
I'm in a bebop.
so I'm 15 years in, going on 16 years, and I remember being a young junior sailor and wanting to deploy and wanting to be in the shit and in the fight. And now that I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, war is a young man's game. It's not like I'm broken, and I've got kids to feed now and other priorities. And so when I
Yeah.
see these kids, um, you know, I want to go and be a Navy SEAL and I want to do this high speed stuff. And it's like, you know what? We need people like you that are capable of doing that, but at the same time, like, you gotta take care of yourself first. You gotta take care of yourself first. And I think trying to teach this younger generation is a lot easier because they know they're a lot smarter and they know that they'll get used up and spit out if they're not taken care of. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just, yeah, I war is definitely a little scarier for me now as I get older because I know so much more of what's going on in the world and I understand the politics behind stuff and what this country is trying to do and what try not to do and trying to hide and what not to hide. But
Yeah, and you probably can't say too much, so that Chowder Hill or the vice admiral of the Navy doesn't call you directly, and they're like, "I was listening to that podcast." And for one, if that happened, I'd be like, "Thanks for listening to this podcast. It's reached very far." But number two, I'd be like, "Sorry, Vic." But like, it's tough, man. And even since I've retired, I've I don't know. It's like I always say you wanna be on the right side of wrong if there's gonna be a
hmm
wrong, You wanna be on the right side of the fence. Even up on that other side of the fence, like, you think to yourself, "Maybe they're right." But over here is where I live, it's where I'm fed, it's where I close my eyes at night, it's where my kids live, all
hmm
these things, right? So you wanna protect that, and I thought about this when I went to Iraq. Like, the first time I went to Iraq in '03, I would think about like we had it was like day 3 or something like that, and we ended up setting up like a small EPW camp. And we had some different like who knows, man. They were either Iraqi soldiers or they were just random dudes. Nobody knows. We had like one interpreter for like 5,000 people,
Oh
and
geez.
And if you ever watch Generation Kill, interpreters are full of shit half the time. So,
Yeah.
um, but the point is that like I would see these dudes and just think like, I don't know them. They don't know me. Like the only
Mhm.
reason they don't like me and I don't like them is because someone way up here told me to. They said that's our enemy. And they were told the same thing, They were told that we're their enemy and you must shoot them the moment you see them or something like that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why? They're just humans, bro. And like I won the birth lottery being born in the United States of America versus being born in Iran or Iraq or Pakistan or something like that. You could have been born
Mhm.
everywhere, anywhere. And I don't know how that works. I don't know, like, someone's like shaking the ball and they're like, "Blah," and and
And
you
throwing it
just,
out there.
yeah, your soul happens to land in your mother's womb. But so I ended up getting a problem with that in my head where I just thought like, "Fuck, man, the only reason I'll ever pull that trigger is if I know that guy's pulling that trigger, That's
Yeah.
it. That's like the only reason. Because otherwise I'm thinking like, I have no reason to kill this guy. He don't fucking know me and I don't know him. So it's
Yeah.
just it's a weird thing. And so I've kind of struggled with that over the last several years. Um and I you want to vocalize that to people, but you also don't want to come off like you're, you know, anti-American and you gotta
Yeah.
write messages on the nukes, man, and all these things. And have you tried watching Masters of the Air on Apple?
I'm like 4 episodes deep. Like,
It,
where
it,
the
it's
first they go to the first battle and one of them doesn't make he
oh
tries to
man,
land and ends up crashing.
all
I don't
the
wanna spoil
what do they
alert for
call it?
people.
All the flak the
Yeah.
Germans shoot up in the air. And at first I didn't understand. I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I realized it's just junk, that they'd shoot
That's
up in
when
the
being
air
in
and
the air
explode.
that's
And
when being in the Air Force was, like, a little scary. That's back in the
yeah,
day.
that was the moment. Yeah. And but it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about like because one of them started getting a little bit of a conscience about uh bombing people that
Had no
didn't do
idea,
anything
yeah.
wrong. They're just there. Yeah. And I read about that years ago with Air Force pilots and how when they'd go out on sorties and they bomb places or whatever, it just like really affects their brain. And even guys flying UAVs, flying drones, and they go and hit some target or whatever, and
Mhm.
they've never met that guy. They were just told to do it, but you've now just killed like a bunch of dudes. But I think the thing to always remember is that those dudes would probably slit your throat if they had the opportunity.
Mhm.
And so you're preventing that maybe for later.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's where I go back to being on the right side of the fence is always important. And so kids today, if they serve, I think they have to have that in mind. And there's always going to be old assholes that send you off to fight their battles for them because
Mhm.
they're not going to. That's always going to exist, unless we live in some kind of utopian society. uh but it's
Which ain't happening anytime
it's
soon because
not looking
HEB's not
good.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's is absolutely true, but it's not looking good. So um it's just, but like again, going back to fatherhood things, though, that's kind of the whole point, is just like conveying to your children that the world is this beautiful future and it's so bright. You think about graduation speeches at high school and they're like, and we're gonna
Mhm.
go forth and we're gonna plant our flag and do great things. And I'm like, nah, man, you're probably gonna be high tomorrow. You're probably gonna
Mhm.
know where you are. You're probably gonna drop out of college. Like it's like,
You'll
but
have 3 baby daddies by the time this all ends in the next 5 years, and
yeah, it's just, which let's hope they don't. But it's like still, it's just things are a lot more bleak than I think it was whenever I graduated high school in '96, and I guess you would have graduated like what, like oh
10
six,
years
oh
later.
five.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so but it's still, I think things were looking pretty good. I mean, you were post 9/11, but I think like we still
Mhm.
had a healthy economy. And I'm sure maybe one of the biggest concerns for you, and especially whenever you decide to join, was war, because I mean, hell, that was almost like surge
Wait
time,
a minute.
when you're
Yeah.
getting out of high school. And the surge was kind of crazy. Like when I went into Iraq was '03, bro, like we were like there for like 90 days and everything was cool. And I don't know if I told you this in the last time we talked, but I can test that if uh 4th Infantry Division, was it 4th ID or 1AD? I don't remember. It was either 1st Armored Division or 4th ID. I think it was 4th ID. When they came to the fight like 3 months later, they replaced 3rd Infantry Division because they were like the lead Army Infantry Division, and they had already been in Kuwait for months before Iraq, and they bitched and moaned they got to go home like after like 6 or 9 months, but they had a lot of fighting. But anyway, the division
Hmm.
that replaced them, they came in and they were like, "What's up, motherfuckers? Let's go, Iraqis. We're gonna kill you all, motherfuckers." And we're like, "Hey, everything's cool, bro. Everything's cool here." People are like falling in line. They're like, "No, no, we're gonna fight." And they started fucking up shit. They went north to Tikrit and Mosul and all these things, and the fighting came back up. Like it intensified. It's almost
Hmm.
like the Iranian paramilitary forces that were already there, but they were like, "Oh fuck yeah, these guys want to fight. We're gonna go fight them," and things just
Yeah.
got tremendously worse, dude. And it stayed
Jeez.
bad for years. And I always go back to that, and I'm like, man, if we would have moved into sustainment operations right off the bat, right there, I think things would have settled. You needed
Yeah.
diplomacy at that point. Saddam, dude, the Iraqi government fell over like a house of cards. I mean, it was just like they
Hmm.
were gone. And all you had to do at that point is say, hey, all you guys come here, we're gonna feed you, we're gonna take care of you or whatever, right? And you get all these people on your side. And diplomatic wise, I mean, they were like Saddam was gone. I mean, people assumed he was dead like right away, and so
Hmm.
no one had any fear anymore, and it was cool, man. Like I met Iraqis that were just so thankful for like the change, the lack of fear in their life. Fast
Really?
forward a year later, they were like, "Get the fuck out of here, guys!" Like,
Like y'all
our whole
still
families
here?
are dying. Yeah, they're like, "You guys are causing problems now," and that's like it's that's been a bane for our society. I mean, you think about we were in Afghanistan for over 20 years, man, and you're like, for what? Like for what? What came out of that good for
Hmm.
the United States? Not a fucking thing. And that's so
I
for
think.
me, I get to say this. You don't get to say this, right? Because like I don't want you to get in trouble. But all the things that happen right now, I feel like they're a little bit more justified than they were like 20 years ago because I feel like now there's the threats a little bit more peaked, but I also feel like they'll sell that to us all the time too. Like every few years, you're like, all this stuff. But
Well,
right
and
now,
I
you
think.
do have NATO surrounding Russia, and he's kind of
Hmm.
like, fuck off my lawn, dude. And like Sweden just got approved; they're like part of NATO now. So like
See,
Russia's literally surrounded. It's
well, it's like
crazy.
one of those things where, like, if Canada is willing to bomb you, y- you probably did something pretty bad or
Yeah,
wrong. You know what I mean? Like, if
they're
Canada's
like,
willing, like, give them
we're
the green
offended,
light,
eh?
boys,
Yeah,
and it's just yeah. So, and
yeah.
a lot of the stuff now people don't realize, how important information warfare is, right? Like how important
Hmm.
data collection and all that stuff is. And like that's a war in and of itself that I don't think people understand or even have a concept of being able to grasp, like
Yeah.
what they can collect on you, or or as a country, you know.
What do you think about like the TikTok situation?
So I personally love TikTok for what it's intended for. Um, as far as like data collection and like this whole China and stuff like that, I really it's above me. It's above
Right?
me, and of course I don't go putting aspect stuff on TikTok, but I consume and digest, and stuff will come up on my for you page. Everything, like right now the big one is Israel and Gaza. That's but again, you know, that's a front line that people are really not considering. That militaries and it's a social platform used to spread awareness, to spread misinformation, to spread information, and you just got
Yeah.
to be smart with what you're consuming. Like they always say, you are what you eat. So if you're just going to be consuming all this tinfoil hat kind of conspiracy thing, that's what you're going to become. And
Oh
I
man.
can't say I don't have a little bit of that in me, but you know, I honestly use it for like meal prep stuff, how to learn how to do things, how to, if I don't know how to do something, that's what I use it for.
There's a lot of good
So.
information. There really is. And
Hmm.
the big one I saw the other day, yesterday actually, was one of our representatives here in Texas, Dan Crenshaw, Navy veteran and whatnot. Um, he shared that the House and the Senate were passing. No, it was the House first, but they had a bipartisan bill passed to try again to force the ownership change of TikTok to the United States instead of China. It was like, we're not saying you can't be on TikTok, but we want America to own it. And I'm like, bro, you are like all these companies. You're trying to tell me that like Meta isn't snagging your data and all this stuff,
Hmm.
but it goes back to that argument of being on the right side of the fence. And It's like, well, if I'm gonna have my data stolen, might as well be an American company doing it, man. So these bots can call me selling me life insurance. While, TikTok, on the other hand, I get really frustrated because as a business owner, I try to brand and sell on TikTok, and they make it really stringent and hard. But sometimes I
Mhm.
applaud it because it's about as hard as Amazon. Like, I'm going through hell to try to sell on Amazon, and I'm just like, how do people sell like little widgets on Amazon left and right? But me trying to sell coffee on Amazon, they're like, we need this picture to be perfect and all this random shit, dude. It's just like it drives me crazy. I'm like, oh, fuck yourself. But because then you don't know if it's even worth it either. But anyway, the
Yeah.
point with TikTok is that, like, I have a really good friend who used to be special forces, and he did communications in SF. So he got to probably see and hear a lot of stuff, throughout time, doing signal. And his big thing is like, if you're on TikTok, you're dumbass. He's like, you're a dumbass because they'll just take all your data. But I'm like, what the fuck do they care about me though? Like, I'm just me. What data are they gonna get from me? My low credit score, my debts. I'm like, cool. And they're gonna be like,
Oh,
oh,
they're
fuck
gonna
this guy.
oh, they're gonna
Yeah,
find out I'm an ass man and not a tits man. Like, God
yeah,
forbid
yeah,
China knows
dude.
that about me. Lure me in with
It's
a big booty Latina or something.
dirty American. Yeah, that's how they're gonna get you, and they're gonna pay you $1 million to. And it's filled with bots and like a lot of stupid shit, for sure. But there's a lot of good information too. And one of the things
Mhm.
I've appreciated is like citizen journalism. Is you get people getting out there and they're recording things. There's a guy in the Seattle area that
Mhm.
he's been covering stuff for a while. He went over to
Yeah.
Israel for a bit, and
Yeah.
I was like, bro, that's not like the suburbs of Seattle. You got to understand, a bullet catches anybody.
Yeah.
I would never, dude. I just
It's funny
honestly,
you
maybe
say
if
that
I had
because
no kids.
yeah, and see that's another thing too. It's like um going back to the whole wanting to play. Like now I have kids to worry about. Like if I don't come home, like I'm
Oh,
gone
dude,
for a
yeah,
weekend. My kids are like, it's a shambles when I get back. So I can imagine if something really did happen to me. But yeah,
green as hell.
yeah. But
Yeah, it's
TikTok's
just
cool. It, again, at your own risk of what you want. My brother works for Apple, and he's really big on, because they're big on privacy and whatnot. And
yeah.
he's like, I want to limit my footprint. And I'm like, honestly, bro, it's too late. Like you can't. It's already too late. You're already in. Like if you have a cell phone, and you don't have an analog phone, like it's already too late for you, bro.
I,
You know.
I I was I was texting with somebody the other day about something of interest, and it pops up as an ad on Facebook. And I know I've gone into settings with Facebook and I'm like, don't sell my information, blah blah blah, whatever. But
Hmm.
to me, once you put that app on your phone, you've just opened the door to them, and
And
they're all
then
going to
and
do it. And so,
hmm And so, like, it's kind of like you said, pick your poison. Like, I know
yeah,
we're talking about, I have Google throughout the house and everything, and me and my wife can be talking about, like my best friend's getting married in Vegas in June. Start talking about Vegas and this. The next thing we know, my FBI agent, that's what we said, my FBI agent sending me stuff on Vegas and what to do in Vegas, and I'm just like,
Victor,
too
you
soon,
will
bro.
love these Las Vegas options. You're like, wait a
Yeah, and I'm
minute,
like,
man.
I didn't
You haven't
even
talked
I
to me.
didn't even type that. It was just, verbal stuff, and so I
I
see
love when
that
I'm
there.
watching. Go ahead.
No, no, keep going. Go ahead. You're good.
I was gonna say I love when I'm just watching TV, and then my Google, like, I have a one of the like a pod or whatever in my living room, and it doesn't say anything that sounds like "Hey Google" or whatever, but it suddenly just starts answering a question, and I'm just like, and I lose my shit with it, even though it's a stupid programmed robot, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, Google, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it goes "Broop," or whatever. It's like rude, and I'm always like, why? I try to turn off active listening, things like that, unless you
Mhm.
say something to it, but I don't think it ever turns off. And it's
No.
convenient. It is nice. I have it connected to like my lights and
Mhm.
alarms in the house and all these things. So it's like it's really convenient to have a nice smart home. But bro, the moment the Wi-Fi goes down or the power goes out, you're like, son of a bitch.
Like back into
It's
back into being a caveman again.
bro, I'm telling you. I'm telling it's whenever the cell phone outage happened a couple of weeks ago when
Yeah.
AT&T had no, yeah, I was like, this is how it goes. This is
They're
China.
like,
They're
"Oh, the
getting like
Russians are doing it to us. They're coming in."
yeah, I was convincing a friend that we were under attack. I was just texting him, and I'm like, "Yeah, everyone at AT&T, man, it's cyber warfare. China's coming." And he's like, "You really think so?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And
Uh,
I think he caught on
and
eventually, where he's like, "Asshole," but But to me, that's how they do it. I don't think we'll have
Well,
direct
and
kinetic
then
warfare.
did you see how I don't know if you saw Walmart just bought Vizio. So Vizio, like not that I'm big
Oh
into TVs,
wow,
but like Vizio,
yeah,
I always like Vizio. It's made in the US. It's had
hmm
an extra year of
yeah,
warranty. And people are like, why would Walmart want to do that? That's so dumb. Why would they want to own Vizio? It's like, well, Vizio smart TVs is basically a billboard for Walmart in your house.
sure, yeah. Those
You know what I mean?
advertisers,
And you download apps or whatever that you watch Roku or whatever. Now Walmart's collecting all your data on exactly what you watch, your times you're
sure,
watching them, and I'm like,
they all
smart
are,
on
man. It
Walmart for
sucks.
doing that.
Yeah, it
Smart on
sure is.
Walmart for doing that, you know?
Marketing runs everything, and I'm like, I'm sitting here trying to sell coffee to people, and they'll man, I have an ad running right now where this guy, and I try to hone my like target audience down like this smaller and smaller because I feel like sometimes I'm too broad and whatever. But anyway, the point is this guy, he left a comment on my ad where he just said, no reviews or comments, weird or something like that, right? And I'm like, first of all, there are. Like there's like just six, but I have six reviews on the Facebook for the brand. So I'm like, all right, how do I respond? And I'm not good at this. I'm not because this is my thing, right? It's like this is my baby, and so you're protective over it and all those things, right? And so when I feel like somebody's coming off like I'm scammy or whatever, I'm just like, bro, like out of all things in the world, why would somebody use a coffee business first of all and create like a whole entire business page and have a website and product ads with my own face in it just so I can scam you for a few dollars? And then I'm thinking like there actually are pages out there that are like that in a sense, but they'll use things like Toyotas and they're like,
Mhm.
go to this link to sign up to win this brand new Toyota Tacoma, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then,
And
then
next
they
thing you know,
enter
your
my
bank
Facebook
account's
back.
drained and
Yeah,
yeah.
dude. And so it's like it's out there, and that's what's scary about it. And I think like I'd love to go analog and just start buying discs again. I was gonna Hunter wanted to watch Madagascar yesterday, and Madagascar used to be on Netflix. Well, now it's not. Now all you can do is buy Madagascar through Prime. Well, what
Mhm.
happens at some point when Prime's like, we're taking this off of our platform too,
Yeah.
So then I'm thinking I just need to go back to buying disc, but it's the convenience factor. It's all convenience factor for us right now. And man, if we ever lose that, it ever drops off, we'll have
So
that'll be our own civil war.
well, it's crazy you say that because, um, they were talking about, like, let me put my tinfoil hat back on. So, like, Atlantis and all these advanced civilizations prior to all
Right.
this stuff, and it's like, you think about
What
it,
happened?
if we were to go dark right now, and everybody were to leave, like, off this planet, what would we have? Because everything's digital, right? I mean, yeah, we might have books, but in centuries, those books are disintegrated or whatever, like, we would have nothing. And I'm just like,
Mm.
"Oh, dude, maybe what if that's what happened to all these advanced civilizations prior to, you know?" Did you ever hear about that story about that he's like a software developer who went to go work for this video game company, fixed an issue with one of the video games that he had, and then quit? Did you ever hear
Oh
about that?
wow. Nah.
Like,
He
he
just
went
like
in, like,
fixed
this
it and he was
guy
like, all right, cool.
yeah, I don't know if it was like World of Warcraft or it was some video game that he played online, and he was so annoyed with it that he got hired on to the company, fixed whatever little bug it was, and then fucking quit.
That's pretty
And
cool.
I'm just like, that's kind of baller, like to be able
I
to
want to
do
get
that.
hired on. I want to get hired on at Twitter then and figure out how to just float up the
Manipulate the
inside.
algorithms. Like, let me
Dude, that's
what
like
show me the
so
algorithm.
gross. And that's the funny thing. So like with the politicians going after TikTok or whatever, I'm like, Twitter's so gross right now, dude. It's so out of hand. I mean, it he hasn't really changed much. There's still all these porn bots, and they'll pop up in random
Mhm.
things. Like, I follow Disney accounts or I'll follow sports accounts, and someone just posts something totally innocuous, just on subject to whatever their thing is. And right under they'll be like, you know, fuck me in my bio, link here, blah blah blah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, like fix that shit, man. Cause like there's kids that might just, kids shouldn't be on Twitter at this point whatsoever because it's just like he's all well, freedom of speech. And I'm like, that's fine. Like I should be able to go on Twitter and say, like, fuck the president or whatever, not have repercussions. But I should be able to go on the Twitter and not be worried about someone saying they're gonna ass rate me for fun or I mean whatever,
Yeah.
it's like you're I don't know. I'm not an Elon fanboy.
I'm
I
not
like some of
either.
the things
I'm
he
not either.
does without a doubt, but I think that he's another elitist man. And now he's trying to get your sympathy where he's like, the state of Delaware is costing me my $56 billion salary. And I'm like, that's your fucking big money problems, bro. That's not, I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, first world
Don't complain
problems.
to the average person about that. You figure that out. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
And it's so weird to me. It's almost like pro sports where people care about what a player makes, and they're like, you got to re-sign this guy no matter what it costs. And they're trying to tell another rich guy, well, a rich guy, not another, but a rich guy, just drop like 20, 30, $40 million a year investing into one person to perform amazingly well to put more money back in their pockets. And that, to me, those just sound like horrible investments,
yeah,
terrible. But they're
exactly.
just they're for one, they're not going to hear you, and number two, those are yeah, big money elitist problems that the 99% of the rest of us will never have. And probably for the most part, you could almost welcome not being wealthy. I mean, I'd love to have good money, but dude, if you're wealthy, people would never stop knocking on your door, um, selling you their
Yeah.
ideas or trying to guilt you. Why didn't you send my kids presents at Christmas time, Vic? What's your problem? I'm like your third removed cousin, and you don't even care about us. You're like, nope, I don't. it's You'd have to change your name, your phone numbers, have a wall around your
Everything on
compound, all
there.
these things. Yeah,
Exactly. Well,
and
and when it comes, like I always tell the kids, like money comes and goes. Money comes and goes. Don't worry so
yeah.
much about money. But I find my kids still worrying about money, like, oh, I don't want you to spend your money on this because that's it's a waste. I'm like, if you want to go, like, that's why I get paid child support, like for you guys to go and do these kind of things. But yeah, it's a totally different world that these fucking kids live in compared to how we grew up.
No, it is, and then to see the government print money and just kick it out the door is something else too. And I really hope. I sound like such I don't know. I sound dense almost when I say this, but I really do hope that this generation of our children are going to take the reins and do something with it. Like they are the future. That's
Well,
if I even
I know
remember the
it's
Whitney
scary
Houston song,
though.
but
Well,
they are and they need to take the reins though. They got to do it differently. We're like the middle ground where
yeah.
our grandparents were like the real boomers, and then our
Hmm.
parents were their kids, and that's whenever like corporate and all this other shit started to really take over the country. But they were just trying to work and do their best and provide for their children, and I get sucked into another war or whatever. And then we're the offset of that, where I mean, we're the preservative babies, we're like the
Hmm.
Happy Meal kids and all this stuff. And now almost like we're like guinea pigs in a sense. And our children from us are like, we've learned enough to hopefully teach them differently so they don't have to be guinea pigs. And hopefully they've learned too.
Well, and you see that thing where it's like, thanks, boomer parents, for being such shitty parents. That we literally do the bare minimum, and we're praised for our work that we do with our children, and
Yeah.
hopefully, like I was actually telling my daughter, I was like, I can wait to be a grandparent. I can definitely wait, but when I become a grandparent, like I want to be there to get my kids off the school bus, my grandkids off the school bus. I want to be there to cook good, like, oh, grandpa's like home cooking is like, is wholesome and it's filling and it's made with love, and that's the type I want to be. I don't want to have to be like where I've got to work until I'm 85 years old and I'm a nuisance to be here and I'm a burden. Like I don't want that at all. I just want to be like the chill grandpa who cooks and barbecues and drinks beer and whiskey with the young kids every once in a while, kind of thing.
Do you plan on staying in Washington long term?
Yeah, I think this is where I'm going to end up for now. You know, I had a buddy actually reach out to me. He was in the Navy, and he moved to San Antonio, and he's a part of the LGBT community, and my brother comes from the community and moved up here to Washington, and just won't ever probably move back to Texas ever again, just because of how narrow-minded some folks are, or
Hmm.
just society over there is, versus here where everything's just like no one really cares. But I feel like people care enough in Texas where they'll say something like, "Oh, why are your nails painted black? Your toenails painted black?" It's like, well,
Yeah.
what I mean, things like that. Like here,
Ironic.
nobody cares at all what who's in your bedroom, what you're doing. It's and even on the conservative side of the state, it's funny because we were talking about last night. My brother's like, "Oh yeah, even the conservatives here, they're just so silly. They're just pretending to be conservatives compared to like Texas, where you have those very far right wing folks." So
Staunch,
yeah,
yeah.
I think this is where I mean I miss the beaches of Corpus, I miss the food, but you know I don't think I can, especially the schools here. I mean, you can look at the teachers' wages here in Washington, one of the highest in the country.
Yep.
And so to me, I can see the difference in the quality of education my kids are getting. And no shade to my friends and family who are down in Texas teaching, but they don't pay what teachers should get paid.
Sure.
Like you
Yeah.
said, they're the future, and we're going to give them 40,000 a year fresh out of college to teach and deal with Title IV kids who are troublemakers in bad neighborhoods. Like, nah, that doesn't make sense to me. You know?
No, and then they're trying to do the same with the vouchers for private school instead of just trying to pay teachers more. They're like, let's do this. Let's spend money and try to get kids to go to these private schools. Which, for one, I'm thinking like there can't be that many private schools. It's like, what are you going to do if a bunch of people take you up on your offer and you don't have the room for them? But then you're going to abandon public schools. Like that's where the majority of children can go. Like, God, dude, I'm telling you, I'm scraping. I'm scraping to get out of Texas, man, and it'll happen at some point. At some point, I'm just gonna say fuck it, and we're gonna roll, and this consequences be damned. Because
Yeah.
I tell him, I'm like, dude, you are my sole reason for being here right now, my existence, all these things is because of you. It's like, yes, I have older sons, but they're grown, like they're essentially
Yeah, they
grown,
can
right?
come they
So
can fly out and visit and stuff.
right, I could live in like the Bahamas right now or something, but I'm like, you're my purpose. And so every decision I make, is putting you first. And so I really talk him through this. And he's on the spectrum. So some things are hard for him to understand where he's just like, yeah, daddy sounds great. Let's go
He's
through
like,
some
"Yeah."
some shit that's cool. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, fool. But I think he's about to be 9 and he's starting to really observe and get things a little bit more and stuff. And so um yeah, like just putting him in the best situation possible. I feel like there's no reason why you shouldn't want to do that for your children. Not
Mhm.
making sacrifice. Like you don't have to, chop off your arms to walk. It's just, but you can make good decisions for your children. And instead of being, I'm just gonna say it, a lazy ass and accepting
Mhm.
the poverty, accepting the low education standards, accepting that. Oh man, I just the things I see every day. I'm like, that's generations of tribalism. Um,
Mhm.
it's just a mentality, to just
And
exist in this arena. And it's
I
a shame
see that
because
a
this is a
lot.
beautiful city. It could be.
Yeah, I see it a lot in Texas. My brother's from Miranda's Pass, and I have
Yeah,
friends from Ingleside, Portland. All the surrounding Refugio, Three Rivers,
yeah,
and the one thing I noticed to them is like that small town mentality. Where like, this is where I'm born. I'm probably gonna die here, and that's okay. And I'm
yeah.
like, when do you accept like there's I guess that's why I had my kids travel. I guess I could say that's why they travel and they can see what else is out there.
Like when you lived in New Jersey, you just saw a different side of the United States, a different
Oh
mentality, and it really
yeah,
freaked me out.
and
How different people
moving
can be.
from New Jersey, right, East Coast, uh, moving from New Jersey to Texas, and having that Southern hospitality thing was like really weird at first. Everyone was very helpful. Everyone thought how I talked was funny, and very polite about it.
You
And then
Yankee.
moving up to yeah, literally, and then moving from Texas to Eastern Washington, um, you know, it was weird because you have this Seattle freeze, right? Where people are they're not like East Coast people, they're kind of rude but helpful. The
Yeah.
people here are just rude and just ignore you or whatever. And so growing up with that and that experience in the 7th grade, I think, because that's a canon event, right? When you move and you leave everything in your life to someplace new, being able to give, because my ex-wife never, she was born and raised in Corpus. Um, but like having that, sharing that experience with my kids, because my kids moved to Washington in the 6th and 7th grade, or
Mhm.
yes, 6th and 7th grade. So they had the same kind of time frame. So I knew in my head what I experienced and what could have helped. And so when they moved, I got them into things and hey, let's go out and experience. Let's go learn about. We're in Seattle. Let's go to Portland. Let's go to Boise. Like we're in the middle of all three of those places. let's go and experience that. And we have, and that's hopefully my children can take that. And if they want to
Yeah.
move to Omaha, Nebraska, or Ames, Iowa, where there's just corn, then that's, hey, if that's the life for them, at least I can say I've experienced. I took them to New York, I took them to Miami, I've taken them to San Francisco and San Diego and LA and all that. So yeah.
Yeah. When and I think that the first time too, whenever someone travels outside of the United States and sees how other people live, is that this idea that we're the only people that are free in the world. Um, it's just so false. And even countries where their government set up differently, that's not what gives people freedom. Because like here in this country, our government, we probably have more laws and rules than almost any other country on the planet, and yet
Hmm.
we're guaranteed rights and all these other things, right? Well, some of those people, they don't even have to put that on paper just to understand what human rights are. I think of like some of the countries like Finland and Norway, where they live
Hmm.
in these socialists, because they're taking care of their people. And I mean, that's just the basis of what that means. But and they're taxed higher, whatnot, and everything, but nobody's living in poverty. No one's living in shit. And they're getting like higher education standards and everything. When I got
Hmm.
stationed in Germany, it blew my mind how people were just an entirely different mentality. Like violence didn't come first. It was more about being like sexy. And like, I mean,
Hmm.
just they were very more like liberated with um I don't know, just sex, I guess, attractiveness, things like that, and there wasn't just, like, violence on every channel, and we wonder why we
Hmm.
have this violence in our country, but, like, the number 1 movies are always, like, people getting killed, blown up one way or the other, even like the Avengers, and I'll tell my son, "Well, they don't have blood, so it's not so bad," but I'm like, "No, these people are still dying,"
Yeah,
Like, you think about,
shit's still
like,
getting killed.
snapping a finger, like, yeah, millions of people just died. That's
Hmm.
dark, and that's, like, what we produce, while on the other hand, a lot of other countries are they're just dead opposite, and I think it shows in their people and their mentality, and, that's I think that's something that has to change here, and again, it sounds so, you know, pussy for, like, Americans, right? Like, "Oh, this guy, yeah, he probably, watches Disney movies." I'm like, "I fucking do." As a matter of fact,
Like,
it's like, it's kinda
matter of
obvious,
fact, I do.
and
But I
I
mean, you're
like
right.
that,
You're
I'm
right. That
fine with that,
we need to have a mind shift of like what's really important to us. Like as Americans, what's really really important. I'd like to put the kids up there as the top three.
Right.
But realistically, like we know, we are a society that's been derived and developed through the military industrial complex, and
Mhm.
war has been lucrative for the United States and probably always will be.
For
So,
the majority of its history.
mhm. And
We've
so
probably been at war more years than we have not been at war.
which
Uh,
kind of goes to the point where like, do I want my kids to join the military? I don't think they need to, but if they want to, I know that they'll be set up for success, if given the right opportunities, right? Or at least if they're doing what they're supposed to do. Go give
yeah,
it. Let's say they go and they learn a trade that they learned in the military, and like for me, for example, like my background is in communication because I went to Dinfos and I had that experience, and I have a top secret clearance with SCI because I'm in the military, and it puts me ahead of everybody else, right off the bat,
yeah,
and
a lot of folks.
it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with this next generation and what they do and how it changes
It
the military.
just getting them to walk across the street. I mean, I think that's, like, such a big deal, and not sit on the front porch. Like, that's it's anecdotal, but, I just think that's key because I know for me, a lot of people who've had that experience, if they've gone and lived outside of the borders of the United States, even for a day, man, and just seen something else, your mentality really changes, and, whenever you take this trip in the near future, I mean, you'll just have to fly through some places and just seeing some of that, you'll just go like, "That's so cool." I mean, my time in Japan only was like I lived in Korea, but like I had a TDY into Japan for like a week, and I'd happily live there now. Just after 1 week experience, I'm like, that country is kick ass, and I'm sorry that we bombed you, but at least we're
Like,
friends
not
now.
bad.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd
But
happily live in
you're
Japan,
looking good
dude.
now. You're looking good now,
It's very pretty. Yeah, they're very. It's like a lot of new buildings. That's cool. They're like,
But
thanks. Yeah,
but again, part of that, why they just saw is just the culture of Japan and
right.
the Japanese culture and whatnot.
Disciplined
And
and not perfect, not perfect at all.
no,
No
I don't
culture
know.
is, but they're very disciplined and they're prideful in the right instances. And what are your what are your near term what are your near term goals? I know are
Near
you still in A&M doing law
t-
school?
yeah, I actually just got an A in my last quarter, so I'm shooting
Woohoo.
for. So I still got
Me too.
so yeah. So school, if I'm trying to finish up by the fall, like just graduate in December, but it's probably looking out it'll be like spring of 2025, which is fine, not a big deal. But I'm
Mhm.
trucking along, looking for a job that fits my schedule right now. But in the meantime, I've been taking orders. I can take orders with the Navy, which plug for the Navy Reserves. If you want to have one foot in, one foot out, that's a great way to do it. Um, but yeah, and then my friend's getting married in June, get the kids for the summer, doing the whole, divorced dad thing of exchanging the children and flying them back and forth
Yeah.
across um, which is so weird because we were talking about it. Yeah, just send my kid on a plane to come visit me. So that, and then just getting through the summer, really, and just enjoying it. I'm trying to start up my own t-shirt screening company, and like I actually want to do it myself and learn, and just a little side business, little going back to you got to have some different avenues and streams of revenue, and
Sure. Absolutely.
that, and just kind of. I think I'll be in Texas May for the Luke Combs concert, but yeah, long
You're gonna
term,
come all the way to
short term
Texas for
stuff.
Luke Combs concert?
Yeah, because that's my wife. My wife loves San Antonio. We have a buddy buried at Fort Sam, and so she likes to go
Mhm.
visit him. And then, of course,
Okay.
like everybody's that we've got there. But yeah, it was a sold out concert. She somehow got tickets to that location, and so it'll be like a spring. It'll be like a little getaway slash anniversary kind of deal for us. And
That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not into country enough to but it's like I'm a big Chili Peppers fan, and whenever I was living in
Okay.
Houston, they played and then literally the weekend of my birthday, but I didn't like this is my dog's eating over here now. This is my like strange protectionism with Hunter is that I've never gotten him a babysitter like ever. And I thought the
Hmm.
one time then I was like, man, I should just get him a sitter. But then it was like a Thursday night, and I'm thinking like, well, what if I don't get home till real late? What if I get in a car accident? And I go into this paranoia
Yeah.
where if anything can happen and I can't make it back to take care of my child, like, fuck. So I don't end up doing a lot of things because of that. So I still have never seen the Chili Peppers in concert. I saw that
Really?
they
Why
were
don't you
doing,
why don't you take him?
dude, they have like a summer tour. They have a, I think 2 shows in Washington this summer. And so I kind of
Yeah.
started eyeballing that. And I look at tickets though, and they're like 200 to like 800, nine hundred
Oh, geez.
dollars. And I'm like, dude, who are you playing for now? That sucks, man. I went down this rabbit hole with Nirvana the other night because the 30th anniversary of In Utero just happened, like when they put that album
Mhm.
out. 30 fucking years, dude. And so I'm watching these interviews, and they had this uncut video circulating on YouTube when they did like an MTV interview where you only saw maybe like a minute of the clip or from the whole like hour interview. But it's real cool because
Mhm.
it's candid and they have a lot of awkward long pauses because they're just in the studio and like things are happening or whatever. But they started talking about concert tickets and what they were comfortable charging and people paying because at the time, like the most expensive show in the world was to see Madonna for like 75, $80. And when they said that, Kurt Cobain's like, "What?" He's like, "That's crazy." He's like, "Oh my god." He's like, what do we charge? We don't charge so much. We don't charge over $20, right? And he's asking their manager. He's like, "We're charging 18.75 right now." And he was like, well, that's probably money well spent, But I'm thinking like you could see Nirvana for 18 bucks in the 90s, dude. I
Yeah.
saw Weezer, Gwen Stefani, what was their old band? Whatever, No Doubt,
Mhm.
and somebody else all in one show, like in Nashville, like when I was stationed there in '97. I paid $14, bro. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Now
not paying 250 or $300 to watch the Chili Peppers, and they're like in their 50s, and I love the band, I love the music, but it's just like, bro, that you're not going to give me enough out of that experience for me to drop 250 bucks, man.
exactly.
Um,
Well, Cheyenne, so I don't know if you know, Danny's actually named after the song Danny California,
yeah,
like My
you
Little
told me that,
Danny.
yeah.
And my wife got me tickets. We were dating right then for my birthday to see Red Chili Peppers. I think she paid like 90 bucks, for the tickets.
I would pay 90 bucks. Yeah.
90 bucks, and that's like nosebleed, and I was fine. I get to say I saw them before I died, but
The
yeah,
show's
man,
cool.
my nephew, we're going to Seattle to take my nephew for his birthday. Everybody pitched in, got him tickets to Nicki Minaj, and it was like, hey, do you get two like nosebleed seats for $300 each, or do you just get one floor seat by yourself? And he was like, I want the $750 floor seat. So, and
For
I'm
Nicki
like,
Minaj?
for Nicki Minaj, and I'm like, bro, you don't even get a place to sit down. And they're like, I'm too old now. I gotta have a place to sit down. I'm like, I'm not trying to stand
Yeah.
up this whole time. But I'm just like,
You
this
gotta
is
be an
his favorite
incredible artist for him
artist.
to drop that kind of money. Incredible.
I'm saying, and I'm
I
like,
saw
and
Alicia
he
Keys
probably
and John Legend once, dude, and I don't think we paid over $100 a ticket. You know,
well,
they were
and
they both won
what's got
Grammys.
me what happened when I moved to Washington is, in Texas they have like, the Randy Rogers band and Eli Young band
Mm,
and Casey
sure.
Donahue, like those big Texas mainstream Texas guys. You come up
Mhm.
here and they're playing in small little like venues, like House of Rock venues for like $20, and I'm like, and I'm telling my wife, I'm like, babe, in Texas, like a show like this would be sold out in 10 minutes and they'd be $100 a ticket, blah, blah. And so I'm just like the progression of how things are going. And I'm just like, and I get it, that's where they make the most money. But then at the same time, it's like
Yeah.
you're charging $120 for a fucking sweater. Like,
Well, and something that I ended up I think it was like a Dave Grohl interview when I was in this rabbit hole, is they talked about back then the ticket prices were cheaper because they would sell a lot of merch and they sold CDs, they sold records and
mm-hmm.
cassettes, and now everything's digital and they have all these streaming deals, and the artists aren't making nearly as much money as they used to because of that, and that's why ticket prices have skyrocketed apparently, and I learned this is like at the time Nirvana's when they would tour, they got I think it was 25% of the proceeds from their tour, and that was
Right.
split up 3 ways between the 3 of them. And so, and that was during that interview that came up or something, and they were like, and then the guy said, like, he's like, "Yeah, but, it was like 25% of whatever show is like $10,000 a show," or something like that, and then they're like, "And then 3 ways?" And Dave Grohl's like, "Shit," he's like, "I can buy cigarettes now." So, like, they were positive about that because it's still way more money they had ever had. They were still gonna get, like,
Yeah.
4,000 dollars per show, and if they played, like, 40 shows, that's pretty good, but still, you
Good
think
chunk of
about that, like,
change.
all that other money going to who, you know?
Everybody
I mean, just
else.
whatever else, and it's just kinda crazy, and so you think about, like, Taylor Swift selling like, her tickets going for, like, 400, 500, $1,000 a pop, and every
Crazy.
fricking stadium is sold out, and she's probably still only getting 25% of all of that,
That's
which
nuts.
she's doing fine, but,
She's doing okay. She ain't
yeah, I
hurting
think
too
she's
bad.
alright. She dumped that dude, but whatever. Like, I don't know if you saw Travis Kelce trying to sing, "Friends in Low Places" at the Super Bowl,
No.
parade. Oh, dude, just look that up. It's just brutal.
Oh
I look
man.
at that and I'm thinking, "How is she with this guy? He's such a douche."
What a
Like, he's such a douche. Yeah, I get it. He's probably, like, he's a man's man and all this stuff, but god, he's a douche. And you just
I
think,
really
like, "God."
like his brother. His brother.
Yeah, he's cool. Travis is a
Yeah,
dipshit, man.
I mean,
It's 'cause he
Travis
name's
Kelce's
Jason.
the little brother, right? And
Needs
so he's
attention.
a
Yeah,
very, very little brother-y of him.
yeah.
So
Um, all right, man. We'll cut out here.
yeah,
Had a
no worries.
good 90s plus minutes, and so if unless there's anything else you want to talk about, or we can add on at another time, but
I think the only plug that I wanted in there is a plug for mental health, right? If you need
yeah,
help, go and get it. I think that's a big thing. I personally thought I was suffering from insomnia, so I went to the doctor, getting help like I always tell my younger sailors. And he's like, "Bro, no, it's not insomnia." I'm like, "Oh, good." He's like, "It's a manic episode." And so got the help I needed, got the meds I needed, no longer on meds. Everything's good now,
yeah.
but because I took the time to get some help. So other than that,
But you have to think about these things, and going back to fatherhood is like, what kind of parent are you being for your child? What kind of person
hmm
for them to look toward to if you're not taking care of yourself fully either? So it's good. It's good. It's part of everything is just being mentally healthy. Um,
yeah,
you gotta
definitely.
be.
Because I think I think part of it is just not being fully present, right? Because you're still putting that stuff in the back of your head, but it's still there. And yeah, dude, I'm just about being present. I need to be better about it. Being off the phone, spending more time with the girls, especially
Yeah.
being home with them now. Like, I'm understanding my 2-year-old a little bit more because, I'm around her more.
Yeah.
And Yeah, just one of those things. But that's all I really had to plug in there for is just, take care of yourself because you can't it's like they say with the whole airline, put your mask on so you can breathe before you can put anybody else's on.
Sure. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Mhm.
Put that on a shirt.
Right?
All right, brother. Well, it's been good
All right,
talking to
man.
you again. And if for whatever reason this one doesn't work, dude, I'm probably just not gonna tell you. I'm just gonna
No, we would just do a
block
whole
you
other
everywhere,
episode.
and you
That's
like
fine.
it's good developmental conversation.
Well, let's shoot to plan for another one, I guess, when I get back from Japan. So in May
Yeah, for
timeframe.
sure. You can talk about all the things that you've did and learned, and that would be really good for sure.
Yeah, we could do that. All right, brother. Well, I'll talk to you later.
All right, Vic. Thanks for joining me on the Opening Try podcast.